I have a theory about people who are very sensitive and can feel a lot of empathy, who impart the feelings of others as if they were their own onto themselves. That these people, I think, have more of a capability of violence, of deceit, manipulative behavior, and just general bad things than people who go throughout their life feeling rather neutral. They are in kind of a good state for their whole life, or good to neutral, and they don't really move from there. Now, most normal people, their emotional state doesn't change very much. They might feel sad if someone dies or if something bad happens, but it goes away the next day or the next week. It isn't like their mood jumps around constantly. They're not constantly feeling things. That's not how those people work. And so those people are generally not very dangerous. They're not a threat because they're just propping up the status quo. That's their life, is just propping up the status quo. But when you get people who to many of you may seem to be kinder, more empathetic, more loving, those people are the people you really have to worry about. Because if you put them in the wrong environment, if you make them feel too bad for too long, if one thing gets messed around, one trigger gets pulled, and by trigger I mean it in the psychological metaphorical sense, not them literally shooting a gun, but that could be the end result of the metaphorical trigger being pulled, which would lead to a literal trigger being pulled. But I digress. If if that person is triggered by some series of events or one event, but something happens to sort of jumble up their emotional state, it can result in some of the most cruel and violent things that you can imagine or can't imagine. I've had experiences with people where some of the most loving people who I knew, but because they had so much love, so much humanity, that they just were that human, they also, in a fit of rage or anger or sadness, a monster comes out of them. And that monster is a result of being emotional. Like, you can't, if you're a very emotional person, it isn't like you just feel the good things, the positive things, or the empathy. It's like you're feeling all the time. No, eh, as much emotional suppression as I do, and as much as I talk about how under control, how under control I am of my own emotions, um, I'm like that. Like, I can feel really strong empathy, and I'm very sensitive to other people, and I care about other people. But there have been times when I've acted like a total psychopath, when nothing was going right, everything was going wrong, and a couple things, from people who I really cared about, led me to saying terrible things, or just cutting off my relationships with them randomly. I've had a long history of doing this. Thankfully, I don't do this anymore. It's been quite a while since I've done this to a person, but I used to do this. I would just randomly cut off friends because I would just get upset, and then I would think, well, clearly the problem here is with the other person and not with the way I'm reacting to things, so I must cut them out immediately. And then I'd cut them out, and then I'd end up feeling incredibly sad for several months about not talking to the person, and my depression would get significantly worse, because I would make an impulsive decision. That's the thing about very emotional people, is that they want to resolve their emotional state because they're feeling too much. Very often I am feeling too much, and I don't like feeling things a lot of the time. I'm sort of because I have to live with having such extreme emotions, I have to sort of teach myself to like feeling things because I've gone the route of trying to suppress everything as much as possible. I've gone the route of just trying to be like a peaceful Buddhist guy, and I mean that's way easier when you're smoking weed all the time because you're just really calm. The weed just makes me really calm, and that's what I like about it is that it sort of like levels out my emotional state. And that was sort of the goal that they had when they did marijuana assisted treatment of people with like bipolar disorder and PTSD, um, and depression and stuff. I believe ADHD was, one of the you can get it prescribed for ADHD, but like it levels out people's emotions. Mood stabilizers never really worked for me. They always just made my depression worse. But like weed is like a natural mood stabilizer for a lot of people at least. For some people it has the inverse effect. But um so so like it's easy for me to be that kind of peaceful person of saying I don't have to suppress my emotions because I've just accepted everything as it is. It makes you very accepting and calm, or it does for me. Um, and so when I've had it consistently, that's what I've been like. And I almost fooled myself into believing that that was just how I was, that like I had effectively changed because of my chemical state being altered, that I was just permanently a different person. I sort of tied it to a number of experiences that I had, namely like when I almost died, for example. I thought that was the reason why I was calm all the time. And it did affect me. It did make me more appreciative of my surroundings and of the world around me, and more calm in general. Like that was a real effect it had. I just overstated the effect, when really a lot of the effect was because of my chemical state being altered as regularly as it was. But my baseline emotional state, any of you who have known me for long enough, for 2+ years, 1+ year, even like 6 months, you've seen me radically shift in terms of my mood, my identity, the way I see things. That's just how I am. I'm just very emotional, and I get carried away with it. And so, well, for one, it's important to admit it, but no, when people get like that, like it's almost unpredictable in a sense. I don't want to call myself unpredictable because I have the self-awareness to see when something is coming on. Nowadays I do. I didn't used to. And I suppress things a lot just because I need to. There are certain things that I just need to suppress in order to function in certain situations. And I have a lot more self-control than I used to. But the problem's still there. The problem is still there of feeling too much of too many things. Like I've had people tell me that like I'm one of the kindest people that they've met because it just makes me feel really good to do good things for people. And there's a lot of times when it makes me feel too bad to not do good things for people. Where like if something bad is happening and I wouldn't if there's something bad is happening and I'm not doing something about it, I'm going to feel bad in turn. Um, and so I feel it. I feel those emotions that other people have. But that doesn't make me a good person, you know? Because again, when you're that emotional, on the other hand, I can go into, full dissociated suppression mode where I just do bad things, where I'm just mean. And so there's two sides of the coin. It isn't black and white. It isn't just because I feel those things or I do those things that I'm more good than other people. Because you get the extreme end of the other one as well. Um, you get the extreme end of the same thing, or the opposite side. What am I talking? I sound like Joe Biden. Um, but so, like the most emotional people, the most loving people, are also the most violent. That's what I've decided. The people who feel the most have the most potential to be dangerous. And I have that potential. I'm not gonna lie. And sometimes, when I was younger, or, even a few times in recent memory, not too recent memory, it's come out. It's come out. And I don't know, it's kind of like a balancing act of just sort of learning to control that part of yourself, I guess. It's weird. It's very, very weird. I don't understand it fully still, but mastering the self takes effort. It's a process that never truly ends. Um, the point I was going to make, there was a separate point I wanted to make about highly sensitive people. Oh yeah, emotional suppression. So that tends to be the way that I act out, is that when I'm upset about something, I don't really emote about it. And I see people who are highly sensitive as well who do the opposite thing, where like the moment they get upset, they get really angry, and then after they get angry, they're like upset about how they got angry. That's not how I get stressed. When I get stressed, I just bury all of the emotions down. I just force them down as much as I can, and I have a neutral face. Um, like, even when I'm in severe physical pain, I'll only make a little bit of a face, but I won't complain. I won't make very much noise unless I have to get up. I'll make a bit of noise if I have to get up. But I won't complain. If someone asks me, oh, are you okay? It'll be all right, blah, 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 that normal comforting stuff, I'll just say, don't worry about it, I'm all right. Um, Even though internally I'm feeling a lot of physical pain. And I know this because other than having a kidney stone, I've had other pretty bad, physically painful situations. When I was very young, my brother threw me off of a bunk bed onto this, huge like box of books, and it was a really hard box. My back ended up hurting for like multiple years, but it healed. But it hurt every day, every single day. How old was I? Like 10 years old or something like that? They hurt every single day. He just threw me off of his bed, and I could have been injured way more by that asshole. But it's young experience, just having to hold the pain in. I was given like paracetamol or something, and it like didn't work. Um, and so I just felt like shit all the time from my back injury. Um, so that's the way I react to physical pain. Emotional pain as well. Like, I feel like emotional pain is something I actually react to stronger than physical pain. I feel very disconnected from my own body. Like, stuff that happens to my body oftentimes just literally doesn't register. Like, for example, when I had a kidney stone and I went to the restroom and I just pissed blood. I looked down on it. I looked down at it, and I just had no reaction. I just walked away, and I went back to doing what I was doing before. Like that when I told people that, like they were surprised. They were like, "How did you have such an aloof reaction to such a serious physical ailment?" And I was like, I don't know, I just pissed blood. It's not really that big of a deal. Yes, it is a big deal. So like with a lot of the time I feel almost completely dissociated from my own body. Like I don't really react to pain. And I think part of it is just extreme emotional suppression. And then the other part is just a real sense of disconnection to what's physically there. But emotions are much more real to me. Emotions are much more real. And so, um, I end up having a more strong reaction to like people saying mean things and stuff like that. Like, to me, that's way more real. Like, those concepts are way more real than any physical pain could be. Um, and that's why I don't understand these people who say get into a fight and that's reality. For one, that's just a really edgy thing to say. Like, it's incredibly edgy to say that. Um, but I've gotten into tons of fights, and it didn't feel real the whole time. There were fights that I lost, there were fights that I won, but it was just like my body was reacting to the things that were happening. That, I had to strategically, get punches in where I had to. I had to sort of, I don't like this like rules of fighting bullshit, rules of fighting. If you're fighting at all, you're enough of a pathetic animal that there are no rules. So I always broke all of the rules, try and like go for the throat, the nuts, and these kind of things. Use items that are in the room or just around you. Slam someone against a wall. Like use literally everything at your disposal to inflict as much physical harm on the other person as you possibly can, and get creative with it. That's when it gets fun, is when you get creative with it. But uh, what was I on about? Oh yeah, so like these people who say, "Oh yeah, get into a physical fight. That's reality. Feel pain. That's reality." I've never understood that, and I don't think I ever will, because it still doesn't feel real to me. It's just stuff that happens to your body. Stuff that happens to your body's not real. It's not real. Like that's how it feels, and I don't know how to convey how that feels to other people. Um, but anyway, oh, enough of that weird Quentin Tarantino bullshit. Um, but why did I say Quentin Tarantino? That's more of like a 1960s gangster kind of thing. Is it maybe like Italian mafia get into a fight? That's reality. Like, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, um, but what was I on about? So yeah, like I think I was talking about how people have seen me do bad stuff. I don't really remember. I don't actually remember what I was talking about. Anyway, basically oh yeah, yeah. So different reactions that highly sensitive people have. Now, some highly sensitive people, they just blow up, and I've blown up before. But usually my reaction is just to suppress the emotions as much as humanly possible. And then it eventually blows up. But it blows up in a kind of weird way. Like I'm still suppressing my emotions as I blow up. That's how deep it gets. That's how deep the suppression gets, is that I'm literally still suppressing them as I'm blowing up and having an adverse reaction, having a negative reaction, doing bad things as a result of what's going on. Um, it's weird. It's really weird, and I don't know how to explain it. It's like I just shut off. It's like I shut off every emotion, and then it allows me to do really, bad stuff. I just completely detach from any sense of self that I have. But at the same time, I am really attached, because I wouldn't be doing the things that I would be doing if I wasn't really attached at the same time. Um, so feelings are weird, I guess.